Adam Warner, congratulations. Back on the PDC tour, secured that tour card for a second time. I know it's been a little bit of time has passed since you confirmed that tour card, but just explain how it feels to be back on tour.
Yeah, I'm delighted. Sort of unexpected in a way, given how the 2 years on tour went, and I think I was sort of right to be a little bit surprised by it, given that lots of other people who were on the tour for 2 years and did better than me didn't get their cards back. I think I was the only one from the UK to get it back, and the two guys from the European Q-School who got it back were they're sort of established pros in their own rights. Really, they're much higher up on the rankings. So yeah, just that feeling on the last day when I knew I'd got enough points to do it was amazing, and yeah, just looking forward to getting on the practice board and getting started, and hopefully knowing what it's about now, doing a bit better this time.
How do you reflect on those 4 days in Milton Keynes, and what was the feeling like in the last couple of days? I know day three didn't go particularly well for yourself, but you managed to get those couple of points on the board on the final day to edge over the line.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't go in with much expectation. I think that probably helped me in a way, in that I was fairly relaxed about whether I got it or not, because I was sort of happy to be maybe doing the challenge tour and Modus and all the other stuff that goes with that. And there's so many opportunities outside the PDC now. Um, so on the first day I went in, I was sort of quite relaxed, and obviously then when you come back after the second day and you've got 5 points and you're almost over the line, you're not quite so relaxed. You want to get it done, and I think that probably led into day three, where even in practice, sort of looking back, I was feeling more intense than I would normally. I was probably trying a bit too hard, and then Frankie Ansell, the guy I played, just had an absolute storm as well, which didn't help me. But even if I played a lot better, I don't think I'd have won that game. He didn't miss. So that obviously puts a lot of stress into the fourth day, which I was trying to avoid. I think that's why I went into that third day so intense. I think I just wanted to get 7 points because that'll be enough. And then you can just relax. And fortunately, that didn't happen. Not much sleep. Had a fire alarm at the hotel as well at 5 in the morning, which didn't help. But it sort of felt like everything was going to go against me. But the moment I walked in on that fourth day, I felt sort of confident. Everything was going in. I was sort of throwing double 16s, my preferred double. They were just going in without me even looking at them, really. And that sort of transpired on the day. I didn't hit any massive averages, but I didn't miss any chances. And I feel like if I sort of needed to, I'd have won as many games as I needed to. I think the main reason I lost when I did was probably that sort of adrenaline had dropped, and that was the reason that I lost the game I did. But if I'd needed another couple of points or 3 points, I think I would have got them. Just so confident that day.
You alluded to the last couple of years maybe hasn't gone the way you'd have wanted it to. What can you learn from the last couple of years to take into the next 2 years of tour card?
Yeah, it hasn't gone the way I wanted to, obviously, but I don't think I'm surprised by it. I think I knew at the time, but looking back as well, I wasn't ready for it. Like I'd just come off 1 year of playing amateur darts, sort of a good month at Modus and getting through Qschool. I was a bit lucky at times. Lots of people mismatched darts against me at Qschool that year. Obviously, I was happy to be there and happy to do it, and I wouldn't change it for anything. But the way it went in the end wasn't and isn't really a surprise to me. Having said that, the back end of my second year, so sort of August onwards with the last dozen or so pro tours, getting a lot more wins, beat a lot of good players, and my averages were a lot higher. I was getting up to around that sort of 95 plus, and sometimes higher than that. Average a lot more often than I had done before, whereas it was an abnormality before then. Whereas I think in those last events I was doing it over and over again and felt like I could compete. Probably should have won even more games than I did. I missed a few chances. So I feel now, am I the finished article? Absolutely not. But I'm a lot more well equipped to deal with the sort of level of darts I'll be competing with. And I feel like I should do better. My target's to keep my card this time. Hopefully I can do that. But first and foremost, let's just do a bit better than the last 2 years.
I guess when you sort of step into that room for the first time, I think I remember speaking to you when you first got your tour card, and it was a case of you're going to be walking into a room with Michael Van Gerwen in it and all those big names, and it's kind of like, ooh, this is a huge opportunity, and sometimes that can be blinding. You're not going to have that this time. You've been in that position before. Do you think the confidence you can take from the end of last year, and I guess just the experience of the last 2 years, can really count for a lot going forward when you head into that first Pro Tour?
Yeah, absolutely. And you see quite a lot of players lose their card once or twice, and then that experience holds them in good stead for the next time. And I'll feel a lot more comfortable in that room than I did sort of at the beginning last time, and when I had a horrible sort of run of form for sort of the middle year, if you like. So the first 6 months last time went all right. The last 6 months went pretty well. I was quite happy with that. The middle year, I sort of hardly won a game. It's not something I've dealt with before on the amateur circuit. Maybe you lose first round 1 week, and then the next week you get to a semi-final, you get that confidence back pretty quickly. That doesn't happen on the Pro Tour. If you start averaging sort of below 90 and missing doubles, you're not going to win any games. You're just going to keep losing over and over again. Sort of that fed into other darts I was playing. So I was going to amateur tournaments and not winning. And you just lose confidence in what you're doing. But I feel like I've got that back. And if I do go on a losing streak, I'm sure I will at some point. Everyone does. But I'll know that you're going to come out the other side, and that should give me the confidence to do that. And I know my A game's higher. I know I've got that top level to beat the best players there, which I didn't believe I had before, and I don't think I did. In all honesty, but even a few changes I made with Daryl fitting at Mission sort of mid last year, and the practice I've put in, and also getting through Qschool, not playing very well. I didn't score very well for the full 4 days. I took my chances and a little bit of luck, and I've got it back. So that gives me confidence as well. So yeah, feeling a lot better.
You mentioned at the start of the interview that it was maybe still a little bit of a surprise that you did manage to get your card back, and there was half an eye maybe on the Challenge Tour and being able to compete on the Modus. I think probably a lot of players would say similar, that those opportunities now outside the Pro Tour are, in some cases, a preferred route. Was there any case of that in your mind, that you thought, well, if I don't get the card, this is a good route to take?
Yes and no. So I was relaxed about it either way. It'd be the way I'd describe it. Obviously, if I didn't want to get my tour card back, I wouldn't have gone to Q-School. I'd have just left it. And as you say, taken those other routes. And there are lots of opportunities and sort of money to be earned and things to do and prizes to be won that way. But I think for any sort of serious dart player who wants to improve their game and play the best players, you've got to want to be on that Pro Tour. And that's what I want. And if someone said to me, what would you prefer, Pro Tour or all the other stuff? It's Pro Tour all day. Having said that, I don't believe it's the be all and end all. And I went into Q-School feeling fairly relaxed about what would happen if I didn't get it. And I'll be back on Modus probably, and all those other things we've mentioned. So I think that probably put me in good stead compared to some others who maybe they've been playing that other side of stuff for ages and they really want to get on the Pro Tour, and it's the number one goal, and it is sort of the be all and end all for them. Whereas I didn't quite feel like that. I could go in a bit more relaxed and just see how it went. And yeah, in the end, I'm thrilled to get it back, and it's definitely my preferred choice. And hopefully, I can give it a good go this time.
Was that something you sort of noticed, I guess, during the 4 days in Milton Keynes, that maybe there isn't the anxiety around it for you like there was some other players? Everybody talks about how tough Q-School is. I guess when you've done it before and you've been on the Pro Tour and experienced that, is something that maybe doesn't quite feel like as big a deal as to some players.
Yeah, you notice a hell of a lot of nerves around, which obviously, like I said, after the first couple of days, when I've got those 5 points, then I start feeling the nerves a little bit then. But those first 2 days, I didn't really feel, I don't think I felt as much compared to some others. You can see it in the way they're practicing and the sort of way they react to things when they miss a few doubles, or they miss like just anything really. You can see the sort of tension and stress. And I think the other thing that played into my hands a bit was I've not had to do the 3 days stage one, which most of them do. And you can see by sort of the Friday or the Saturday, day 5 and 6, a lot of sort of tired darts. People are sort of just sort of at the end of their sort of energy levels, really. I know it's not a physical sport, but sort of getting up, going, mentally preparing yourself for 2 or 3 hours every day over and over again takes its toll. And I was on sort of day 2 or 3 of that, so still fairly fresh. And I think that really helped me in those sort of crucial moments when I had a lot of sort of 6-4 and a lot of 6-5 wins, where you've got to have that sort of composure and mental resilience to get through. Some of the people I played had run out of it, and luckily for me, I hadn't.
Obviously, that played into your hands, playing just stage 2. But do you think it's maybe something to look at for the future? There's been a lot of talk about whether more tour cards should come off things like the Challenge Tour, or maybe even the Top of Development Tour. Do you think it would increase the standard of the Pro Tour overall if it was done in a different way?
It's difficult to say. Possibly. If you look at players who get their tour cards off the Challenge Tour, it's a mixed bag as well. So I don't think it's sort of the sort of panacea that people make it out to be. Whereas if we take, say, the top 8 off the Challenge Tour, they'll all go onto the Pro Tour and do brilliantly. The main reason people struggle on the tour is because they can't play in other things and get their confidence back. Well, that's what I found anyway. You're not going to go to another tournament and get through a load of wins and play really well and see that feed into your Pro Tour, because you're going to play another Pro Tour match, you're going to come across another really good player, and if you don't play well, you're going to lose. And like I say, that's what I found. I think I lost 13 first round matches in a row at one point, and you can't go and play Modus to get your confidence. You can't go and play a Challenge Tour. You can play sort of down your pub or your local opens, but that only does so much. So I think that's the main reason that people struggle. I think the Q-School system is pretty fair in that you get rewarded for one good day, a really good day, and then it's all done on points. You can't just rock up and sort of fluke it, like some people would suggest. If you've won a tournament of 128 of the best amateur players on the day, you deserve a tour card. And also, if you've got into the top 9 or 10 on an order of merit of another sort of 120 players, you probably deserve a 2-year tour card as well. So I think with either way you go, there's flaws. So I wouldn't necessarily be looking to change, especially from my point of view as well, because obviously it's worked for me a couple of times.
Just one last thing I wanted to touch on, and that was the sort of changes around the European Tour. Obviously, it's going to affect a lot of players outside of that top 16 and the top 32, where the top 16 are going to be automatically into the European Tours, and then the top 16 on the Pro Tour order of merit are going to go in round 1 as well. I think a lot of players I've talked to have said it's going to be difficult for them to sort of justify over the couple of years on tour, because it's going to create a bit of a gap between the top 16 and the players looking to fight to keep their card. How do you view it?
Yeah, but it already has done. They changed it from 24 tour card qualifiers to 10 last year. So I went from, in my first year, having to win 2, maybe if I was unlucky, 3 games to qualify for Euro Tour, to having to win 3 or 4. Obviously, the caveat to that is there's the players ranked between 16 and 32 aren't there, and you can't draw them. So there were a couple in my first year where I had games against Stephen Bunting and people like that, who was down there at the time to qualify. So that's the caveat. You've got more games, but they're, in theory, not so challenging. Well, that's not always the case. But yeah, definitely mentally for me, it was more difficult because I'd go into the day thinking, God, I've got to win 3 games today, rather than I've got to win 2, or the draw comes out, I might have to win 4. And you sort of, this was partially my fault, give up before I've started. And that's something I'm definitely sort of aiming to change this year. I want to go in with a better mental attitude to those, just sort of take each game as it comes, right? Won that one, on to the next, and not sort of worry about the longer term picture of it, and I've got to win another 3 or 4, whatever it is. In terms of the sort of looking at the rankings, you've already seen the change. So I think last year, the 64th place player had about £10,000 more on their order of merit than this year, because more of that money is concentrated at the top, which I can see why they've done it, because they want to guarantee the best players are there for those European Tour events and get the ticket sales. But it sort of lost a bit of its charm, I suppose, in that there's more unknown players and opportunities for people. I don't feel strongly either way about it in that respect. One thing I think they could look at is the sort of money for qualifying for a Euro Tour. So at the minute, it's, I think, £12.50 for that first round, and you've got to win 3 or 4 games to get there. Whereas on a Pro Tour, you win 1 game and you get £1,000. There seems to be a little bit of an imbalance there in terms of the achievements. So I think people who have qualified for that Euro Tour and won 3 or 4 games on their day probably deserve a bit more than £12.50. That would be the thing I would change. Yeah.
Are the European Tours a big aim for you to get to those more of those events during the next 2 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say my 2 aims are, first of all, I want to qualify for an Ali Pali. That's sort of the big sort of bucket list thing I want to tick off. Just the experience of being there would be amazing. And obviously the one European Tour experience I had in Munich in 2023 was amazing, and I love that, playing on the stage. It sort of brought the best out of me, darts-wise. I feel sort of more comfortable up there than I do in sort of the quiet sort of Pro Tour surrounds. But like I say, the reason I didn't qualify for that was partly my sort of mental approach to them. So I'm sort of looking to change that, and hopefully the results will follow, and I can get in a couple.
No, brilliant stuff, Adam. Really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll catch up once you've settled into version 2 of Tour Card Adam Warner.
Lovely. Thanks very much. Cheers.